All right, let's get started. I'm going to work in my journal because I draw a lot of my faces right in my journal. Remember, journaling is not about making amazing, beautiful pages all the time. Journaling is about expression and practice. So it's okay to practice in your journal. And that's what a journal is for, okay? So practice right in your journal. Don't worry about making mistakes. Remember, this is what I do if I make an ugly face. I go, well, that one turned out bad. And then I turn the page. So no big deal, right? I very rarely draw over a blank page. Usually I have some sort of background going on there. So I'm going to make a very simple, quick background. I'm going to start with a little bit of acrylic paint. And I'm going to keep it pretty simple because I like to have white space. So I'm going to scrape a little bit of paint on there. This is pre-gessoed. I always gesso my pages because I have some techniques that are gesso dependent, number one. Number two, I use a lot of acrylic paint, and paint acts better on gesso. It doesn't soak into the paper too much, and it's the correct color if you've gessoed first. So before this acrylic paint is dry, I'm going to lay a stencil down. This is one of my new stencils. I'm going to rub, and I'm sorry if this shakes the camera. It's shaking the whole desk. But by taking this baby wipe, I'm going to rub, and I'm going to remove some of that stenciling. Looks good. I find that if my baby wipe is too wet, you get lots of seepage. I have a little bit here of seepage underneath, and a little bit doesn't bug me. A lot will kind of ruin the effect. So I will dry my wipe out by putting it in my apron and kind of wringing it and getting some of the moisture out. Oftentimes here in Arizona, my wipes are kind of dry anyway. It's just so dry here that they tend to dry out quick. So for the most part, it works out. So there's a little bit. Let's add a little bit of spray ink. You guys know I love this Dylusions ink spray. Here's the problem with this though, is that it will always come through your paint layers later, excuse me. And so you need to keep that in mind as you have it in the background. If you have it right through the center of your drawing, if you're going to paint over it, it might alter it later. It might bug you. So a little around the edges though, not a bad idea. So I move my hand as I spray so that I get a good stencil design, not a big pile of inky mush. That's enough for me to start with. I'm not going to overdo the background a whole lot. Those of you that know me know that I love white space. So what I'm going to draw with is this magic pencil. Don't go to the store and ask for the magic pencil. They will not know what you're talking about. The magic pencil is a nickname that I gave to the Stabilo All, A-L-L pencil. And what I love about it is it's made to write on paper, glass, plastic, and metal. Well, acrylic paint is plastic. So you get this wonderful dark line. So I'm going to sharpen it. You'll need to have a sharpener close by because it will really, the tip will really wear down fast. The other thing I want to comment on is that I don't erase when I draw. So if I really hate my drawing with this magic pencil, I can wipe it off with a baby wipe. It might leave a little bit of gray there, but I can get rid of it if you really hate it. And if I draw a line in the wrong place, I just kind of press harder and draw it where it's supposed to be. So I really recommend drawing quickly, no erasing, and just go. So bottom line is, a head is not a big fat circle, okay? A head is kind of an egg shape. And a mistake that a lot of people will make is that they will make the head way too wide, especially on the sides, okay? So you just have to keep in mind and practice head shapes and realize that a head is definitely not a big circle. Some of us have rounder heads than others, and again, all of this will vary depending on race and genetics, but for the most part, a head's kind of this oval shape. Sometimes you'll see instructions tell you to draw a circle and then kind of put a candy cone bottom on the end, okay, like that. You could do that. for the most part, I'm a wing it type person. You have to know that about me. So I just wing it and draw the head shape. And if it's not quite where I wanted it to be, I scribble where it should be. And so that's why my faces look like they do, right? So you need to draw in your guidelines then. So I'm going to lightly divide the face in half this direction and in half this direction. So the number one mistake that most people make is making the eyes way too high on the head. Your eyes are not up here. And look at your before picture. I guarantee many of you drew your eyes really high on the forehead. This is the top of the head here. The hairline will be lower, and then the eyes will be here. So you need to keep this in mind. I promise you, your eyes are in the middle of your head, and that alone will help your drawings look a little better. So then this half of the face, the bottom half, you're going to divide in half again. And I'm eyeballing it. If you'd like to measure it, feel free. And then the bottom half of the face, you divide in half. Okay, so this is the eye line, this is the nose line, and this is the lip line. There are a lot of other very complicated ways to proportion out a face. I am not good at math, nor do I care about a lot of complicated calculations. So this is kind of the down and dirty Dina Wakley method of getting the proportions right in the face, and it's good enough for me. So another thing you need to know is that eyes are one eye width apart. So if you draw a cyclops in the middle of your person, the eyes are going to be that distance apart. A mistake that I see a lot of people make initially also is that the eyes are way too small and way too close together. And you know, once you know all these rules, you can break them. And one of the ways that I particularly draw my girls, I tend to oversize the eyes on purpose because that's how I like it to look. But your eyes are in general one eye width apart. Okay, so your nose goes on this nose line right here, and we'll talk about these individual features more in a little bit. And the mouth is centered on this mouth line. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about eyes for a second. One of the ways that people will often draw eyes is they will draw eyes like this. Like that. Did any of you do that? If you did, that's okay, but I'll show you a better way to do it. What that doesn't take into account is that eyes have lids. So the eye has an upper lid, okay, and the eye has a lower lid. Okay, and the iris, the colored part of your eye, is not 100% visible like this. You can't see the entire iris unless your eyes are wide open with surprise or something like that. Really, you see only a portion of the iris, and it is cut off at the top, often at the top and at the bottom, or I'm going to just cut mine off at the top here because I kind of made those eyes kind of wide. Okay, because the lids are cutting off that iris, excuse me. The lids are cutting them off. Okay, and then the pupil of the eye is not a solid black dot. The pupil of the eye has a catch light, and if you're a photographer, you know what catch lights are. Catch lights are the little reflection in an eye that reflects the light that's nearby. So if you look in a fashion magazine, there'll be a little white reflection that could be the lights from the fashion studio. I have a picture of my son where I'm his catch light because you can see me holding the camera up in his eye. I'm the reflection in his eye. It's kind of cool. When you're drawing any living creature, whether it be your dog, a bird, or a person, in order to make them look alive, they need to have a catch light. And so instead of drawing a solid black pupil, what I do is I will start to draw the pupil, and the pupil needs to be very, very dark, very black. I will leave an area of the pupil open. And that is the catch light. When you're painting, what's nice about catch lights is that you can go back in at the very end with your white paint and give them a little catch light. When you're drawing, you need to leave it. You can't go back and put it in. Really, you need to leave it. So that will give you a more realistic looking eye for sure. Okay. Now I would like you to touch your eyebrows. Touch the front of your eyebrow, the part that's closest to your nose, and I want you to drag your hands straight down and see where they end up. Now where your fingers end up from the tip of your eyebrow, so if I draw eyebrows in here, if I'm dragging my hands down like this, my hands are ending up at the tip of my nose. They're not ending up on the side, the fleshy part near the nostril. That's not where they're ending up. They're ending up at the tip. And this will help too. Your eyebrows connect to the tip and not the nostril. So generally on the side of the nose there is the nostril that's kind of not really a circle, kind of a flat little mark. Okay? And the fleshy bumps are to the side, not to the bottom. Okay? Noses people will struggle on. I'll see people often draw noses upside down like this. That's not correct. Kelly Ray Roberts, who's a really cool mixed media artist, this is how she draws a nose. That's it. So sometimes we overthink it. I tend to think of a nose as bicycle handlebars. So there's a nostril, and then there's the tip of the nose, and then there's the nostril. To me that looks like, if you look like bicycle handlebars, if you're looking at the front of a bicycle, if you're standing at the wheel kind of straddling that front wheel and looking towards the bike, that's what you see, because then the bike would be here, right? Yeah, right? So the nose to me looks like bicycle handlebars. And the nose will start looking better when we start painting, because the nose is a pyramid that's on a sphere. So your head is a sphere, your nose is a pyramid, and in order to make it look right, it has to be shaded. So for the most part, when you're drawing, when you're only drawing and not shading or not adding paint, don't worry a whole lot about lines or making sure it looks super accurate, because it'll look way better once we start shading and once we start painting as well. So this simple little nose is just fine. So another mistake people tend to make with a mouth is that they'll draw a Joker mouth. They'll connect it like this. And did some of you do that in your before? You probably did. So what you need to know is that the mouth has these little top bumps here, right? And then touch the center of your lip. What you can feel there is a little fleshy bump. That's where Bobbi Brown would tell you to put the highlighter gloss, right there on the center of your lip, right here. So to make the lips look a little better, if you draw those upper bumps, okay, and then you draw this a little fleshy bump underneath there, underneath that downwards valley right here. So here's the peaks, here's the valley. There's a little fleshy bump down there, I promise there is. And then the mouth is closed here, and that your mouth line goes out. Your bottom lip, I want you to touch your bottom lip. I want you to feel where it ends in relation to where your mouth opens and shuts, okay? So touch your bottom lip. Does your bottom lip end out here way at the corner? No, it doesn't. It ends up higher. So your lip, where your mouth opens and shuts, goes further out than your bottom lip does. Okay? So you'll see sometimes I won't even connect my mouth. But the bottom line is that will make a better looking mouth than will, this Joker's mouth. Because your bottom lip does not connect here to the ends. Touch your mouth. Look in the mirror. Look at a reference photo. I promise. Okay? So we've got a pretty decent looking face going on here. Now I'd like you to touch the side of your eyes, and I would like you to draw your hands straight backwards. You'll see that you're touching the top of your ear. And then if you touch your mouth, and if you draw your fingers straight backwards, you'll see that you're touching your earlobe. And so that means that the ears are kind of between the eye and the mouth, right? I very rarely draw ears on my people. I just don't feel the need to draw them, but that's where they go, so you know that. I also want you to touch your earlobe and then move directly behind your earlobe, and I don't mean your skull, but what do you feel back there? What you should feel is the start of your neck. So what you need to know so that you don't create bobbleheads is that your neck starts up here behind the earlobe and about the same level as the mouth, okay? And then it will angle in. So that will help you know how wide the neck needs to be. I have a big aversion to floating heads. So I'll walk around in class and I'll see people drawing and I'll say, put a neck on her, because I don't love a floating head. It just drives me a little cuckoo. Okay, so that's where the neck goes. So let's talk about hair. One thing that is a sure way to make your drawings look more amateurish is if you draw in too much hair. So generally what I will do, hold on, I need to sharpen my pencil. So generally what I will do is I will draw in the idea of hair. So remember, this is the top of the head and my hairline's lower, okay? So you have to remember that once you get that hairline in is when your people will start being like, oh, it doesn't look like a big mannequin, right? Oh, she looks better. I just tend to draw updos or crazy kooky hair. If you like curly hair, that's fine, but just draw in a few curls. Don't draw in every curl. You could do a bob. Don't draw in every line of the bob. Draw in the outline of the hairdo. So notice I'm sharpening my pencil a lot. Another mistake that people will make when they're drawing is, with this pencil anyway, is that they don't lay down enough pencil lead, because if you have this strong background that you're drawing over, what needs to happen is your drawing needs to be bold enough to stand up against the background. So if you are not having to sharpen your pencil, you're not putting enough lead down. I can go through a whole pencil in an afternoon because I really lay down the pencil, and I like scribbles. I mean, I like the lines to be dark and I like them to be full of emotion. Okay, so I don't do these light sketchy lines. I scribble it down, and if, like I said, if I put a line where I wish I wouldn't have, you can wipe it off with a baby wipe. Sometimes I'll wipe the whole nose off because I think, oh, that didn't work. Just wipe it away. If you have gessoed, you can wipe away the pencil. If you haven't gessoed, you cannot. Okay, so one awesome thing about that magic pencil now is that you can take a wet brush, just water, and I can dissolve some of those lines. Now if you've only have drawn one line and if you haven't scribbled, and if you start dissolving lines, it'll start looking funny. It'll kind of look, I don't know, like a funny coloring book or something. But if you're like me and you've done a lot of lines, I don't dissolve every line. What I do is I dissolve one or two. And what's cool about that is that I can make it look very artsy and give it a cool look. The other thing that you can do is you can pull some of that magic pencil, you can pull it out and use it as shading. We'll talk more about shading when we get to painting, but I can take my wet brush and pull that out and start to give her shadows and highlights. Okay. And if you do something with the pencil that you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that, just get your baby wipe out and clean it up. It will be okay. Okay, so I can mess with this for a while, or I could call it done. I don't paint in every single girl that I draw. Sometimes I really love the way the backgrounds are coming through. So I like her. I think she looks good. But those little proportion tips, those little bits about the formula will really help your drawing. So if you're following along or if you're drawing along, this drawing should be worlds better than your before drawing that you did. It really should. Just by putting the eyes in the middle of the head, not too high on the forehead. Eyebrows connect to the tip of the nose here. Okay, right? Oop, that brush is not fabulous here. I have a brush that's spreading out on me. Okay, lips that don't look like Joker's lips, right? Eyes where part of the iris is cut off, because that's, you have lids, you have upper lids and lower lids, so you can't see the entire iris, right? And there's my drawing. People will say, why do the girls look so sad? I don't mean for them to be sad. I will say it's harder to draw a smiling girl, but let me give you a few tips on that real quick. So, let's see. Let's do it right here. Okay, so if this is the shape, kind of the almond shape of an eye with lids, right? Pupil and a catch light. An eye that's smiling up here will sometimes have a bump at the bottom. Instead of being a round almond shape, it's going to have that little bit of skin. Think about your cheekbones and your cheeks pushing your eyes into this smiling squint, right? So if you change the eye shape like that, what will happen is your girl will appear to have a little bit smilier eyes, okay? Yeah? And then the other thing that you can do is when you do your mouth, you've got those mountains in the valley, you've got the fleshy bump here. Angle your lip, your middle, your opening mouth line here. I don't even know what to call that. The part of your mouth that opens, the bottom lip and the top lip, where they meet, angle that upwards. So if you angle that upwards, remember that lip, the bottom lip needs to meet not at the corner, exact corner, even the top lip doesn't meet at the very corner of the mouth. It stops short of that corner. And that will give you a more smiley mouth as well. So you can definitely try those as well. I tend not to draw teeth, and if I do draw teeth, it will just give you, it'll just be a little line or a little shadow. It'll be the suggestion of teeth, because if you're not careful, teeth can look like chiclets. And then I also don't draw eyelashes, because if I start drawing eyelashes in, I don't always love it. So what I'll tend to do is just make sure it's darker there, and give the illusion of an eyelash. But if you are an eyelash girl, you know what? Draw in the eyelashes. That's not a problem. Okay. Yeah. So I hope that gives you some ideas for making your girl smiley. So we'll go back to the drawing. So there's our drawing. It does look a little bit like a mugshot, doesn't it? But I like her. Sometimes when I draw them, I don't know, they'll speak to me. I'll be able to tell what their story is. Sometimes I'll write their story onto their face or onto my page. My journaling might be in their hair. Let's do that. Some journaling in there as well. And look what you did. You drew a girl. You're awesome. Keep practicing. Don't just draw one. If you wanna get good at this, you gotta draw a lot. So practice a lot, and then meet me back for the next part of this class where we're going to talk about painting.